The call came while I was sitting in the infusion center for in my arm, watching poison drip into my veins to kill the cancer trying to kill me. Rebecca, we need to talk about the wedding date. My sister Olivia's voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize. The one that meant she'd already decided something and was simply informing me of my compliance. What about it? Memorial Day weekend is perfect. The venue has an opening and Connor's family can all make it. But it conflicts with one of your chemo sessions. I looked at the 4-bag at the other patients around me in various stages of treatment, at the nurse who just checked my vitals because the side effects were particularly bad this round. Olivia, I can't miss chemo. The treatments are scheduled specifically. Can't you just reschedule? Move it to the week before or after. This is my wedding, Rebecca. I've been planning this for months. Chemo doesn't work like that. The timing is critical. My oncologist. Oh, come on. It's one session. Surely they can be flexible. You're being dramatic about this. I closed my eyes. I have stage 3 breast cancer. The treatment protocol is 18 weeks of chemotherapy followed by surgery. Missing a session could. Could what? It's 1 week. You're not going to die from waiting 7 days. She paused. Look, I know you're going through something difficult, but this is my wedding. My one special day. Can't you think about someone other than yourself for once? The nurse approached, having clearly overheard. She shook her head sympathetically. I can't miss the treatment, Olivia. Fine. Then come to the wedding bald. But you're not ruining my photos by looking sick. Wear a nice wig at least. And maybe some extra makeup to hide the cancer look. She hung up. The nurse touched my shoulder gently. Your sister is in medical school? Johns Hopkins. 3rd year. Top of her class. And she just asked you to skip chemotherapy for a wedding? Yes. The nurse's expression hardened. That's not just ignorant. For a medical student, that's dangerous. I didn't respond. What could I say? That my family had always prioritized Olivia? That when I was diagnosed 6 months ago, my mother's first concern was whether I'd lose my hair before Olivia's engagement photos. That my father had asked if I could time the surgery to not interfere with Olivia's medical school graduation? My cancer was an inconvenience to my sister's timeline. The family dinner was 3 days later. Mom had insisted, we need to finalize wedding plans, and Rebecca, you really should make an effort to participate more. I showed up wearing a scarf to cover my thinning hair, exhausted from the latest round of treatment. Olivia was radiant in designer clothes, her perfect hair and perfect skin glowing with health and privilege. Rebecca. Mom air kissed near my cheek, careful not to actually touch me. Look, while you're here, come see the seating charts. The dining room table was covered in wedding planning materials. Color swatches. Vendor proposals. Guest list. My father poured wine for everyone except me. You probably shouldn't with the medications, right? Olivia launched into wedding updates. The dress. The flowers. The honeymoon in Bali. Every detail meticulously planned, breathtakingly expensive. And the date is definitely Memorial Day weekend, she announced, looking directly at me. I've already sent save the dates. Olivia, I told you that's my chemo week. And I told you to reschedule. Have you talked to your doctor? Yes. She said missing a treatment could compromise the entire protocol. The cancer could progress. I could. Oh, please. Olivia rolled her eyes. You're being overdramatic. I've been studying oncology this semester. One mistreatment isn't going to kill you. My mother nodded. Olivia's right, dear. She's at Hopkins, one of the best medical schools in the country. Surely she knows what she's talking about. She's a 3rd-year student. My oncologist has been practicing for 20 years. Are you seriously going to take medical advice from some local doctor over your sister? Dad frowned. Olivia is going to be a doctor. A real one. At a top hospital. I am seeing a real doctor. Dr. Sarah Morrison is the head of oncology at Rebecca. Olivia's voice was sharp. This is my wedding. My one special day. I have been planning this for a year. You've known about your little medical situation for what, 6 months? Surely your treatment can be adjusted for 1 week. My little medical situation? Olivia, I have cancer. And I'm getting married. Which is more important, your vanity treatment or your sister's happiness? I stared at her. Vanity treatment? You think chemotherapy is vanity. Well, what else would you call it? You're pumping yourself full of drugs that make you sick so you can keep your hair and not look old. It's basically cosmetic at this point. The room went silent. Even my parents looked uncomfortable. Olivia, I said quietly, chemotherapy is killing the cancer cells in my body. Without it, the cancer will spread. I could die. You're being dramatic. I've studied this. Early-stage breast cancer is totally survivable with just surgery. The chemo is probably overkill anyway. I have stage 3 cancer. Not early stage. Stage 3. The tumor is. Whatever. The point is you're not dying tomorrow. My wedding is in 8 weeks. I need you there looking presentable, not making everything about your health issues. I stood up, my legs shaky. I can't do this. Rebecca, sit down, Mom commanded. We're not done discussing the wedding. I'm not missing chemo for a wedding. And I'm not going to sit here and be told my cancer is vanity. I walked out, got in my car and drove home to my apartment. I cried the whole way, partly from exhaustion, partly from the soul-crushing realization that my family cared more about wedding photos than my survival. 2 weeks later, I was back in the infusion center when my phone rang. Dr. Morrison's office. Rebecca, this is Dr. Morrison. I need to discuss something sensitive with you. Are you available to talk? I'm in treatment now, but yes. I received a very unusual call today from Johns Hopkins Medical School. Specifically from Dr. Richard Chin, the Dean of Medicine. My stomach dropped. Why? Apparently, your sister Olivia submitted a paper for her oncology rotation analyzing a case study. The case study was you. What? She used your medical records, which she obtained without authorization, to write a paper arguing that your treatment protocol is excessive. She claimed your oncologist is overtreating for profit, and that you could safely skip multiple chemotherapy sessions without significant risk. I couldn't breathe. Rebecca, what she wrote is not just wrong, it's dangerously incompetent. She misrepresented your pathology, ignored your staging and drew conclusions that could kill you if followed. Dr. Chin called me personally because he was so alarmed by the quality of her work that he wanted to verify the actual facts of your case. Oh my God. I walked him through your real diagnosis. Stage 3 triple-negative breast cancer. Aggressive cellular characteristics. High risk of metastasis. The exact treatment protocol we're using and why each session is critical. What did he say? He was appalled. Not just by her medical incompetence, but by the ethical violations. She accessed your records without consent, used your private medical information without permission, and demonstrated such fundamental misunderstanding of oncology that he's questioning whether she should continue in the program. She's going to be kicked out? There's going to be a hearing. The medical school takes ethical violations very seriously, especially when they involve patient privacy and dangerous medical recommendations. Dr. Chin wanted me to inform you because you may need to provide testimony. I sat in silence, processing. My sister had stolen my medical records to prove she was right about me skipping chemo for her wedding. There's more, Dr. Morrison continued. Dr. Chin wanted you to know something else. He's been the keynote speaker at several oncology conferences I've attended. We've collaborated on research. When he heard my name as your doctor, he asked me to assure you that you're receiving excellent care. He knows you. We're colleagues. He's one of the leading researchers in breast cancer treatment. And he was horrified that a student at his institution would suggest you compromise your treatment for a social event. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. I was subpoenaed to provide testimony about the unauthorized access to my records. My family's reaction was predictable. Mom, how could you do this to Olivia? She's worked so hard. Dad, you're destroying your sister's career over a mistake. She's just a student. Olivia, you vindictive bitch. I was trying to help you and you're getting me expelled. I blocked their numbers and focused on surviving. My treatment. My health. My life. The hearing was held at Johns Hopkins. I sat in a conference room across from a panel of medical school administrators, ethics board members, and Dr. Chin himself. A distinguished man in his 60s with kind eyes and an expression of profound disappointment. Olivia sat with her attorney looking defiant. Dr. Chin began. Ms. Carter, can you confirm that you did not give your sister Olivia Carter permission to access your medical records? I did not. And did you give permission for her to use your case as the basis for an academic paper? No. He turned to Olivia. Miss Carter, student, how did you obtain these records? Olivia's attorney whispered to her. She spoke carefully. My sister talks about her treatment a lot. I took notes. You took notes detailed enough to include pathology reports, staging classifications, and specific drug protocols? She shared that information with the family. Dr. Morrison, attending as a witness, spoke up. That's false. I've reviewed the paper. It contains information from Rebecca's medical charts that she wouldn't have known herself. Technical pathology details, biopsy results, imaging findings. This information could only have come from direct access to medical records. Dr. Chin opened a folder. We've also discovered that Ms. Carter accessed patient records at her rotation hospital using her student credentials. We have digital logs showing she viewed her sister's file multiple times. Olivia's face went pale. That's a HIPAA violation, one of the ethics board members said. A serious one. Dr. Chin continued reading from Olivia's paper, his voice increasingly stern. You wrote, and I quote, "The patient's treatment protocol represents excessive intervention driven by profit motive rather than medical necessity. Chemotherapy could be safely reduced or eliminated without significantly impacting outcomes." He looked up. Ms. Carter, your sister has stage 3 triple-negative breast cancer. This is one of the most aggressive forms of breast cancer. Without the full treatment protocol, her 5-year survival rate drops from 70% to less than 30%. You're not just wrong, you're recommending something that would likely kill her. I was just exploring alternative approaches. By using your sister's stolen medical records to argue she should skip treatment for your wedding? The room went silent. Yes, Dr. Chin said, we know about that too. We spoke with your family members who confirmed you've been pressuring Rebecca to miss chemotherapy to attend your wedding. That you called her treatment vanity, and suggested one session wouldn't matter. Another board member spoke. Ms. Carter, you do understand that as a medical student, you're held to professional standards? That suggesting a patient skip critical cancer treatment demonstrates unfitness for the profession. Olivia's attorney tried to object, but she cut him off. She's my sister. She's being dramatic about everything. The cancer probably isn't even that serious. She just wants attention. Dr. Morrison stood. I've brought Rebecca's actual medical files. With her permission, I'd like to show the panel exactly how serious her condition is. I nodded consent. Dr. Morrison displayed my scans on the screen. The tumor. The affected lymph nodes. The pathology showing aggressive cellular characteristics. This is not drama, she said quietly. This is a woman fighting for her life. Every treatment matters. Every session is scheduled based on careful analysis of how to give her the best chance of survival. And this student, she gestured to Olivia, violated her privacy, stole her medical information, and used it to argue she should compromise her treatment for a party. Dr. Chin closed the folder. Ms. Carter, the panel will deliberate, but I want to be clear about what we're considering. You violated HIPAA. You breached patient confidentiality with your own family member. You demonstrated gross medical incompetence in your assessment. And you prioritized a social event over a patient's survival. He paused. These are not the qualities we want in physicians. Olivia was expelled from Johns Hopkins 2 weeks later. The ethical violations were too severe. The medical incompetence too dangerous. The breach of trust too complete. She blamed me entirely. So did my parents. The voicemails and emails were brutal. You destroyed your sister's dreams over a grudge. She was trying to help you and you got her expelled. What kind of sister does this? I never responded. I was too busy with chemotherapy, with healing, with fighting for my life. Dr. Chin sent me a personal note. Ms. Carter, I want you to know that Dr. Morrison is providing you with excellent care. Your sister's assessment was not just wrong, it was dangerously incompetent. Please continue your treatment exactly as prescribed. You have a strong chance of beating this, but only if you don't listen to people who value a party more than your life. I framed that letter and put it next to my treatment schedule. I finished chemotherapy 3 months later. The surgery was successful. The cancer was gone. During my final scan, Dr. Morrison smiled. Clear. Complete remission. I cried. From relief. From exhaustion. From the overwhelming weight of having survived despite my family's interference. You did it, Dr. Morrison said. You fought hard and you won. Thank you for believing me. For protecting me. Always. That's what doctors do. I walked out of the hospital cancer-free, into a life without my family but with something more valuable. The knowledge that I'd chosen survival over their approval. Olivia never apologized. Neither did my parents. 2 years later, I heard through extended family that Olivia was working as a pharmaceutical sales rep. She'd applied to other medical schools but been rejected. The ethical violations followed her. My mother called once, asking if I'd consider writing a letter supporting Olivia's reapplication. I hung up without answering. Some relationships can't be saved. Some people will always choose the wedding over your life. And some lessons you learn at the cost of everything you thought family meant. But I survived. And that was worth more than any relationship built on the expectation that I should die conveniently.
You're just a gold digger, my mother-in-law Patricia sneered, waving my late grandmother's jewelry box in front of me. These beautiful pieces belong to someone who deserves them, my Emily. I sat quietly at her elaborate dining room table, watching as she roughly handled the antique rosewood box that had been in my family for generations. My name is Isabella Martinez, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law attempt to steal what she thought was my inheritance to benefit her precious daughter. What she didn't know was that I was perfectly calm for a reason. These will help Emily with the down payment on her dream house. Patricia continued, her voice dripping with satisfaction. After all, she's actually blood family, unlike you. She opened the box, displaying the glittering pieces inside with obvious greed in her eyes. I took a sip of the tea she'd served, hiding my smile behind the cup. Are you sure you want to do this, Patricia? I asked quietly. Those pieces have been in my grandmother's family for generations. Oh please, he scoffed, picking up what appeared to be a stunning diamond necklace. Your grandmother was just a small-town jewelry maker. These are probably cheap costume pieces anyway, but they'll fetch enough for Emily's house deposit. If only she knew, my grandmother hadn't been just a small-town jewelry maker. She'd been one of the most skilled artisans in her field, known for her ability to create perfect replicas of priceless pieces. She'd also been incredibly wise about protecting her real treasures. Besides, Patricia continued, her voice sharp, these should have gone to Emily anyway. You've been married to my son for 5 years, and what have you contributed? No children, just your little teaching job. Emily needs these more than you do. I thought about the real jewelry collection safely stored in a bank vault my grandmother had set up years ago. She taught me well about protecting what mattered. Every piece in that box has a story, I said softly. Are you sure you don't want to hear them before you sell them? Patricia rolled her eyes. Stories don't pay for houses, Isabella. I've already contacted an auction house. They're coming tomorrow to collect everything. She closed the box with a decisive snap. Maybe this will teach you that in this family, blood matters more than marriage. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. You might want to check the box again, Patricia. There's more to it than meets the eye. What are you babbling about? She demanded, but I could see a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. My grandmother always said that true value lies beneath the surface, I replied, heading for the door. You might want to look more carefully before you contact that auction house. Are you threatening me? Patricia's voice rose, her face flushing red. Wait until I tell David about this. He'll finally see what kind of woman he married. I paused at the door, thinking about my husband, who was currently on a business trip. By all means, tell David. In fact, I encourage you to have everything properly appraised before you make any decisions. As I drove home, I couldn't help but smile, remembering the day my grandmother had shown me the truth about her jewelry collection. I was 16, and she called me into her workshop, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Bella, she'd said, holding up 2 identical diamond necklaces. Which one is real? I'd studied them carefully, but couldn't tell the difference. That's when she taught me her most valuable lesson about protecting what matters. Every piece in her collection had a perfect replica, and only she knew which was which. She'd spent years creating them, preparing for exactly this kind of situation. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Stop trying to scare me with your ridiculous hints. These jewels are being sold tomorrow, and that's final. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Laura, my grandmother's old friend who worked at the auction house Patricia had contacted. It's starting, I told her. She's bringing in the replicas tomorrow. Laura chuckled. Don't worry, honey. I'll make sure everything goes exactly as your grandmother planned. That evening, as I sat in my study looking at photos of my grandmother, I remembered her words. People who take what isn't theirs often learn their lessons the hard way. Patricia was about to learn just how right my grandmother had been. My phone rang again. It was David. Bella, my mother just called me, ranting about you threatening her over some jewelry. What's going on? I took a deep breath. Your mother is trying to sell my grandmother's jewelry collection to help Emily buy a house. She took the box from our house while you were away. There was a long pause. She did what? Bella, I'm so sorry. I'll talk to her, make her return everything. No, I said firmly. Let her go through with it. Trust me, David. Sometimes people need to learn lessons for themselves. What are you planning? He asked, knowing me well enough to hear the certainty in my voice. Just wait, I replied. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting. As I hung up, I walked to my home office and opened my grandmother's old diary. Inside was a detailed inventory of every piece in her collection, both the originals and the replicas. Patricia thought she was selling precious jewelry to help her daughter, but what she didn't know was that my grandmother had designed each replica with a special feature, a kind of signature that would be impossible to miss during a proper appraisal. Tomorrow, Patricia would learn exactly what happened to people who tried to steal from my grandmother's legacy. I smiled, thinking about the secret compartment in the box that Patricia hadn't found yet. The one containing my grandmother's letter explaining exactly what she'd done with the real jewelry collection. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about letting people walk right into the traps they set for themselves. The next morning, I arrived at the auction house just as Patricia was strutting through the front doors, the rosewood box clutched triumphantly in her arms. Emily trailed behind her, already dressed like she owned a mansion instead of the small apartment she shared with 3 roommates. Laura met them at the reception desk, her professional demeanor perfect as she welcomed them. I stayed in the background, watching the scene unfold. These are museum-quality pieces, Patricia announced loudly, setting the box on Laura's desk. My mother-in-law collected them over many years. The lie rolled smoothly off her tongue, as though she hadn't spent years dismissing my grandmother as a simple craftswoman. Laura opened the box carefully, her trained eyes scanning each piece. I saw the moment she spotted my grandmother's signature marks, the tiny, almost invisible details that distinguished the replicas from the originals. Her expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight twitch of her lips. Very interesting pieces, Laura murmured, lifting the diamond necklace Patricia had been so excited about. Let me call our senior appraiser, Mr. Thompson. He specializes in vintage jewelry. Patricia preened, already counting the money in her head. Emily, darling, soon you'll have your dream house. Won't that be wonderful? Emily nodded eagerly. Maybe we can even get that 5-bedroom in the gated community, the one with the pool. I had to hold back a laugh. They were about to learn an expensive lesson about counting chickens before they hatched. Mr. Thompson arrived, his white gloves and magnifying glass at the ready. He began examining each piece methodically, his expression growing more intrigued with each item he inspected. Fascinating, he said finally, setting down a sapphire bracelet. These are some of the finest replicas I've ever seen. The word replicas hit Patricia like a physical blow. What do you mean, replicas? She demanded, her voice rising. These are genuine antiques. Mr. Thompson adjusted his glasses. Oh, they're certainly valuable in their own right. These are masterwork replicas crafted by someone with extraordinary skill. Each piece has a tiny maker's mark, see here. He pointed to a nearly invisible symbol on the necklace. This is the signature of Elena Martinez, one of the most renowned jewelry replicators of her time. Patricia's face went from red to white in seconds. No, that's impossible. These are real. Actually, Laura interjected smoothly, Elena Martinez was known for creating perfect replicas of famous pieces. Her work is highly valued in certain circles, but not quite in the way you might have hoped. She named a figure that was about 1/10 of what Patricia had clearly been expecting. Emily's dreams of a poolside mansion visibly crumbled. But Mom, you said. Where are the real pieces? Patricia whirled to face me, finally noticing my presence. You know about this. I stepped forward, pulling out my grandmother's letter from my bag. I tried to tell you to check the box more carefully, Patricia. Maybe now you'd like to look at that secret compartment. Laura demonstrated how to press the hidden catch, revealing a small space beneath the jewelry trays. Inside lay a single envelope, yellowed with age. Patricia snatched it up, her hands shaking as she read my grandmother's elegant handwriting. To whoever thinks they can take what isn't theirs. The real collection is exactly where it belongs, safe from those who value gold over family. What you hold are my masterworks, replicas I created to protect my true legacy. Remember, not all that glitters is gold, and not all family is bound by blood. You tricked me, Patricia's voice echoed through the auction house. No, I replied calmly. You tried to steal what wasn't yours, and you didn't even bother to learn its true history. My grandmother spent years creating these replicas because she knew someday someone would try to take advantage of her legacy. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. I would point out that these replicas are still quite valuable to collectors. Elena Martinez's work is highly sought after in certain circles. But Patricia wasn't listening. She was too busy fumbling with her phone, probably trying to reach David. I'd already texted him the whole story, including photos of the letter and his mother's attempt to sell my inheritance. Emily slumped in her chair, her dreams of instant wealth evaporating. Mom, what are we going to do about the house? I already told everyone. Perhaps, I suggested quietly, this is a good time to learn about earning things for yourself, instead of taking them from others. Patricia grabbed the box, her movements jerky with rage. This isn't over, she threatened, heading for the door. David will hear all about how you humiliated us. I watched them leave, feeling oddly peaceful. Laura approached me, holding back a smile. Your grandmother would have loved this, she said. She always said the best lessons come from our own mistakes. She also said that true value isn't about what something costs. I replied, thinking of the real jewelry collection still safely stored away. It's about what it teaches us. As I headed home, I thought about how my grandmother's wisdom had extended far beyond her craft. She'd known that someday someone would try to take advantage of her legacy. Instead of just locking everything away, she created this elaborate lesson, turning her skill into both protection and education. My phone buzzed with a text from David. Just talked to Mom. Coming home early. We need to have a family meeting. I smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of some much-needed changes in our family dynamic. Patricia had learned an expensive lesson about greed and assumptions. Now it was time to see if she'd learned anything about the true meaning of family. David came home the next day, his face etched with a mix of exhaustion and determination. We sat in our living room as I showed him everything. My grandmother's letter, photos of the real jewelry collection, and most importantly, the security camera footage of his mother taking a box from our house while we were away. I knew she could be difficult, he said, running a hand through his hair. But this, stealing from our house, trying to sell your inheritance? I never thought she'd go this far. It's been building for years, I replied softly. The snide comments about my family, the constant favoritism toward Emily, the way she's tried to undermine our marriage. This was just her biggest move yet. Before David could respond, our doorbell rang. Patricia stood there, Emily trailing behind her like a chastened shadow. Gone was the triumphant smirk she'd worn yesterday. Now she looked like someone who'd swallowed something bitter. Well, she demanded, pushing past us into the living room. Are you happy now, Isabella? You've humiliated us in front of everyone. David stepped forward, his voice firm. No, Mom, you humiliated yourself. You broke into our house and tried to steal from my wife. Steal? Patricia's voice rose. I was trying to help your sister. Family helps family. Yes, I interjected calmly. Family does help family. But you've never seen me as family, have you, Patricia? The room fell silent. Emily shifted uncomfortably on her feet, looking anywhere but at me. I have something to show you, I said, opening my laptop. The video played clearly, Patricia entering our house with her spare key, which was meant for emergencies only, heading straight for my study where the jewelry box was kept. You spied on me, Patricia gasped. No, David answered for me. She protected her home. Like any sensible person would. I opened another file, photos of the real jewelry collection, each piece gleaming with authentic beauty. These are the originals, I explained. Safe where my grandmother put them years ago. She created the replicas not just to protect her work, but to teach a lesson about value and trust. Patricia sank onto our couch, her bravado finally cracking. All this time you knew? Of course I knew. My grandmother taught me more than just about jewelry. She taught me about protecting what matters, about watching and waiting, about letting people reveal their true characters through their own actions. Emily spoke up for the first time, her voice small. The house I wanted. I told everyone I was getting it. Maybe, I suggested, it's time to think about earning things for yourself. My grandmother built her collection piece by piece. She taught me that anything worth having is worth working for. David placed a hand on my shoulder. Mom, you need to return the spare key. And we need to set some serious boundaries going forward. Patricia clutched her handbag, looking trapped. But we're family. Yes, I agreed. We are. And families should respect each other, support each other, not steal and scheme against each other. My grandmother's replicas weren't just copies. They were a test. One you failed spectacularly. What happens now? Emily asked, finally meeting my eyes. I pulled out an envelope. Inside is information about a first-time homebuyers program, real estate courses, financial planning resources. If you're serious about wanting a house, here's how you can work toward it, legitimately. Emily took the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of understanding in her eyes. Patricia stood abruptly. This isn't what I came for. I came for an apology. No, David said firmly. You came hoping to bully us into giving you what you wanted. That's not happening anymore. Things are going to change. As they left, Patricia's shoulders slumped in defeat. I thought about my grandmother's words. Sometimes the most valuable things we own are the lessons we learn. A week later, Emily called me, her voice hesitant. I signed up for one of those real estate courses, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. Patricia still avoided family gatherings, nursing her wounded pride, but her power over our lives was broken. David and I were stronger for having faced this together, and I knew my grandmother would have been proud. The jewelry box sits in my study now, filled with the replicas, a reminder that true value isn't always about what something costs, but what it teaches us about ourselves and others. Sometimes the most precious things we own are the wisdom to wait, the strength to stand firm, and the courage to let truth reveal itself in its own time. My grandmother's real legacy wasn't just in the genuine pieces she created, but in the lessons she left behind. Lessons about patience, protection, and the true meaning of family. As I look at the box now, I smile, knowing that its greatest value was never in the jewelry it contained, but in the truth it revealed. The master bedroom needs to be cleared by tonight, my mother-in-law Barbara announced, marching into my house with moving boxes. Amanda needs her space properly set up. She gestured to the young woman trailing behind her, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. I stood in my kitchen, coffee mug gripped tightly in my hand, watching this surreal scene unfold. Amanda, my husband's girlfriend of 6 months, shifted nervously from foot to foot, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. And where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Barbara waved dismissively toward the back of the house. The garage has that small room attached. That should be fine for now, until you figure out your next steps. My name is Olivia, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law try to install my husband's girlfriend in my own home. The same home I'd spent the last 8 years turning into a sanctuary. The same home that now felt like it was being invaded. This is my house, I said firmly, setting down my coffee before I gave in to the urge to throw it. Barbara's laugh was sharp and cruel. This house belongs to the family. Michael needs it now for his new life. You should be grateful we're letting you stay at all. Michael, my husband of 10 years, had moved out 3 months ago, claiming he needed space to find himself. Apparently, he'd found himself in the arms of his 25-year-old yoga instructor. I'd known about Amanda for weeks, but them trying to move her into my home, was a new level of audacity. I'm not moving to the garage, I stated, crossing my arms. And Amanda isn't moving in here. Don't be difficult, Olivia. Barbara stepped closer, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my face. This house has been in our family for generations. Michael's grandfather built it. You're just the soon-to-be ex-wife. You have no right to it. What Barbara didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Michael's grandfather Thomas had been more than just the man who built this house. He'd been my mentor, my friend, and in many ways, more of a parent to me than Barbara had ever been to Michael. I'd spent countless evenings with Thomas in his final years, listening to his stories, learning about the family history, and helping him organize his affairs. Barbara had been too busy with her social clubs to visit him, and Michael had always found excuses not to stop by. But I was there, 3 times a week, until the very end. The movers will be here this afternoon, Barbara continued, already measuring the windows for new curtains. Amanda has excellent taste. This place could use a more youthful touch. I watched as Amanda ran her hand along the kitchen counter, the same counter where Thomas had taught me to make his secret recipe pasta sauce. Every surface in this house held memories, not just of my marriage, but of the real family I found here. I have some work calls to make, I said calmly, picking up my coffee again. I'll be in my office. Your office? Barbara scoffed. That's going to be Amanda's yoga room. She'll need somewhere to train her clients. I closed my door on Barbara's continued demands and pulled out my phone. With trembling fingers, I dialed a number I'd memorized months ago. Mr. Patterson? It's Olivia. I think it's time. The lawyer's voice was calm and reassuring. I was wondering when you'd call. Shall I proceed with opening the trust documents? Yes, I replied, hearing Barbara and Amanda's voices float up from downstairs as they discussed paint colors. It's definitely time. What they didn't know was that Thomas, in his final months, had done more than just share stories with me. He'd seen exactly who his family had become. Barbara's materialistic manipulation, Michael's weak-willed selfishness, and he planned accordingly. I hung up with Mr. Patterson and opened my desk drawer, pulling out an old envelope. Inside was a letter Thomas had given me 2 weeks before he passed away. Only open this when you need it most, he'd said, his wise eyes twinkling with that familiar mix of mischief and kindness. I'd known this day was coming. I'd seen the signs in Michael's growing distance, in Barbara's increasingly hostile behavior. Thomas had seen it too, long before any of us were ready to admit it. Downstairs, I heard the front door open and Michael's voice join the others. The movers are on their way, he called out. Mom, did you tell Olivia about the garage? I ran my fingers over Thomas's letter, remembering his last words to me. Sometimes, my dear, justice comes in unexpected ways. Just be patient and trust in what we've planned. The sound of footsteps on the stairs told me they were coming to confront me again. I tucked the letter away and squared my shoulders. Let them come. Let them make their plans and measure their curtains. The trust documents would be unsealed tomorrow morning, and then they'd learn what Thomas had known all along. That family isn't about blood or marriage. It's about who shows up, who cares, who stays. Barbara's sharp knock rattled my office door. Olivia, the movers need to get in there. I smiled, thinking of Thomas and the future he'd helped secure. Come in, Barbara. We need to talk about the house. The door swung open, and there they stood. Barbara, Michael, and Amanda, ready to claim what they thought was rightfully theirs. They had no idea what was coming, what's there to talk about. Michael asked, leaning against my office doorframe with that familiar look of smug confidence. Mom's right. This is a family house. You're not family anymore. I sat calmly at my desk, fingers tracing the edge of Thomas's letter. Actually, there's quite a lot to discuss. Mr. Patterson, the family lawyer, will be here in 20 minutes. Barbara's perfectly penciled eyebrows shot up. Patterson? Why would that old fool be coming here? Because I called him, I replied simply, and he's bringing some important documents that all of you need to see. Michael straightened up, his smugness wavering slightly. He remembered Mr. Patterson from his grandfather's funeral, the stern-faced lawyer who'd given him a disapproving look when he checked his phone during the eulogy. Whatever game you're playing, Olivia, Barbara started, but the doorbell cut her off. That'll be him now, I said, standing up. Shall we move this to the living room? They followed me downstairs, Barbara whispering furiously to Michael while Amanda trailed behind, clutching her designer bag like a security blanket. Mr. Patterson stood at the door, his weathered briefcase in hand, looking exactly as he had the day Thomas had introduced us. Mrs. Collins, he nodded to me, then turned a cool gaze to the others. Barbara, Michael. And this must be the girlfriend. Amanda flushed red as Barbara bristled. Now see here, Patterson. Please, he interrupted. Let's all sit down. We have important matters to discuss. Once everyone was seated, Barbara perched on the edge of the sofa like she was ready to pounce. Michael slouched in his father's old armchair, Amanda hovering uncertainly nearby. Mr. Patterson opened his briefcase. Before his death, the lawyer began, Thomas Collins made certain arrangements regarding this property, arrangements he specifically asked me not to reveal until they became necessary. What arrangements? Michael demanded. Grandpa left everything to the family. Mr. Patterson pulled out a thick envelope. Actually, Michael, your grandfather left this house in a very specific trust. A trust that named one particular person as its executor and primary beneficiary. Barbara's face went pale. That's impossible. This house has always passed through the male line. It belongs to Michael. Not according to this, Mr. Patterson said, removing several documents from the envelope. Thomas was quite clear about his wishes. The house and everything in it was to be placed in trust for the person who, in his words, showed true understanding of what family means. He turned to me, extending the papers. Olivia has the name trustee and beneficiary. These belong to you. The silence in the room was deafening. I took the documents, remembering all those evenings with Thomas, how he'd watched me care for his home, tend his garden, listen to his stories while his own family was too busy to visit. This is ridiculous. Barbara exploded, jumping to her feet. She manipulated him. She took advantage of a sick old man. Mr. Patterson's voice cut through her accusations like steel. Thomas was of completely sound mind when he made these arrangements. In fact, he specifically anticipated this reaction. He pulled out another paper. He left a letter explaining his decision. Shall I read it? Michael was staring at me, his face a mix of shock and dawning comprehension. He remembered all the times I'd invited him to visit his grandfather, all the dinners he'd skipped, all the family stories he'd been too busy to hear. To my family, Mr. Patterson read, if you're hearing this letter being read, it means you've forgotten what truly matters. This house was built not just with bricks and mortar, but with love, with the hope of creating a place where family would grow and thrive. Olivia understood this. While you were all busy with your own lives, she sat with me, learned our history, and showed me what it means to be truly family. The house is hers, to use as she sees fit. Perhaps this will teach you that family is earned, not simply claimed by blood or marriage. Barbara sank back onto the sofa, her face ashen. Michael stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair in that nervous gesture I knew so well. The movers, Amanda said suddenly, her voice small. They're supposed to be coming. You should probably cancel them, I suggested quietly, since you won't be moving in after all. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. There's more. The trust also stipulates that any attempt to contest these arrangements will result in the house being donated to the Historical Society. Thomas was quite thorough in ensuring his wishes would be respected. Barbara's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Michael looked lost, like a child who'd just been told Santa wasn't real. Amanda had already grabbed her phone, presumably to cancel the movers. Now, I said, standing up, I think it's time for everyone to leave. I have some redecorating to do. I looked directly at Barbara, and I won't be needing that garage room after all. The days following Mr. Patterson's revelation brought a parade of reactions from the family. Barbara launched into damage control mode, calling relatives to spin her version of events before word got out that she tried to move her son's girlfriend into my house. Michael oscillated between angry texts and pathetic attempts at reconciliation. We can still work this out, he wrote one evening. The house is big enough for both of us. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I spent my time restoring the house to the way Thomas had loved it. I rehung his old photographs that Barbara had deemed outdated. I brought his favorite armchair back from the attic where Michael had banished it. Each change felt like reclaiming not just my space, but Thomas's legacy. A week after the trust revelation, I was tending Thomas's rose garden when a car pulled into the driveway. It was Amanda, looking considerably less confident than the day she'd walked in planning to take my bedroom. Can we talk? She asked, hovering by the garden gate. I gestured to the patio chairs. 5 minutes. She sat, fidgeting with her bracelet. I didn't know, she burst out. About the house, about Thomas, about any of it. Michael told me you were just his bitter ex who wouldn't let go. And you believed him, I said, not unkindly. Just like you believed Barbara when she said you could move in here. Amanda looked down. I'm starting to see why Thomas chose you. Michael. He's not who I thought he was. Last night he suggested we try to contest the trust anyway, said we could figure out a way around it. I couldn't help but laugh. That sounds like Michael, always looking for the easy way out. I ended it, she said quietly. This whole thing opened my eyes. I don't want to be part of a family that treats people this way. As she left, I thought about Thomas and how he would have appreciated the irony. His final gift hadn't just secured my future, it had revealed the true character of everyone involved. The following Sunday, I hosted my first dinner party in the house since everything happened. I invited Mr. Patterson and his wife, along with a few close friends who'd supported me through the divorce. As we sat around Thomas' old dining table, sharing stories and laughter, I felt his presence in every corner of the house. Barbara made one final attempt at confrontation, showing up unannounced one morning with a manila envelope. "These are photos," she announced, dumping them on my kitchen counter. "Proof that you manipulated Thomas. I'm taking them to my lawyer." I calmly slid them back toward her. "Go ahead. And while you're there, ask your lawyer about the consequences of contesting the trusts. I'm sure the Historical Society would love to give tours of this place." She left, but not before I saw the defeat in her eyes. She knew she'd lost, not just the house, but the power she'd wielded over the family for so long. Michael moved to a different city shortly after. I heard through mutual friends that he was telling people he'd left the house to me out of kindness, rewriting history to protect his ego. That was fine by me. I had the truth, and more importantly, I had Thomas's legacy. 1 year after the failed attempt to move Amanda in, I sat in Thomas's study, surrounded by his books and mementos. The house felt more like home than ever, filled with the warmth and history he'd always cherished. I opened his letter again, the one he'd given me before he died, and read the last lines that had given me strength through everything. "My dear Olivia, a house is more than walls and a roof. It's a vessel for love, for memories, for the kind of family we choose rather than the one we're born into. You understood that when the others couldn't. Take care of our home, and let it take care of you. With all my love, Thomas." I folded the letter carefully and looked around the study, at the life Thomas had built and entrusted to me. Barbara and Michael had seen this house as a possession to be claimed. They never understood that it was really a gift to be earned through love, respect, and genuine care. Outside, Thomas's roses were blooming, their fragrance drifting through the open window. The house felt alive, not with the chaos Barbara and Amanda would have brought, but with the peaceful energy Thomas had always cultivated here. In the end, the property trust hadn't just given me a house. It had given me the freedom to honor Thomas's memory in the way he deserved. And somewhere, I knew he was smiling, satisfied that his home had ended up exactly where it belonged.